when people get too inundated with this idea that somehow something's wrong with them if they have negative emotions, negative thoughts. We're trying to pursue a meaningful life even when we're in pain.
I'm gonna let you take it away.
Well, it's interesting because we are so used to making goals all the time, but goals are really different from values. So goals are things you can check off of a list, right? Like you can run a marathon, you can get married, you can have children, you can start a new job. But values are the things that we want to stand for the most. They're sort of these ideas that bring us meaning, that make us feel proud of ourselves, that make us feel like we're really living the life that we want to lead. And so these are kind of things like honesty. Because you're not like, okay, I've been honest enough, I checked it off the list, I'll never have to be honest again.
Yeah, right, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, so values are sort of these continual things, and they're about process. And as we've been talking about this entire series, ACT is all about process in many ways. It's not about who I am in this moment. It's about the fact that you have a self as context, and it's the process of it. And it's the same thing with diffusion. It's not about this one thought that I'm having now. It's about the fact that you back away and you realize that that is just a thought in a moment in time, and it's just a mental event. And so really, defining your values is all about getting to what is the most meaningful for you. So sometimes you might reach a goal and you feel kind of empty. Oh no, what's my next goal? Well, maybe because that goal wasn't rooted in a value. So it's not that we don't want to make goals, it's that the goals should be really rooted in what is important to us. So a certain value should be defined first before you make a goal that maybe aligns with that value and how you want to live your life. So I love this because it really kind of brings home this idea that when you are living a valued life, and when you're living a life that is really about who you want to stand for, you're not always going to have happy moments. Because let's take honesty again. Do you think that being honest makes you happy all the time? Absolutely not.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
You can really have lots of problems with people when you're honest.
Absolutely. I've had plenty of problems with my honesty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yet you're like, no, this feels good to me. I need to be an honest person, and I'm not going to lie to you.
Right.
If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but I cannot lie to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is really sort of the rub, is that when we think about happiness, especially the way that it's been promoted in more recent time, it's all about the absence of negative emotion and experiences. And if we look at ads, that's what they promote. Even ads like, here, take this antidepressant for your mood problems. It's people skipping in a meadow, and all of a sudden they're laughing with their family. But that's not the journey of most people. You're still gonna have fights with your family. You're still gonna have difficult times. You might not be able to run in a meadow every single day. And yet that's the advertisement, right? So we're sort of like promoting these ideas of happiness means the absence of negative sensations. And when you go all the way back to philosophers back in the day, they defined this idea of happiness as eudaimonic happiness. And so eudaimonic, I know, euda what? It's eudaimonic happiness. Eudaimonic happiness. It's different from hedonic happiness, which is the happiness that is sort of amazing, brilliant, and in the absence of any negative feelings. Eudaimonic happiness is the happiness or the joy that you get from doing the things that you value most. And when we pursue meaningful things, we're going to be in pain sometimes. And yet, at the end of the day, it'll be much more satisfying to you.
Okay,
That's
so
what values direction is all about.
An example of that.
So, an example of
eudaimonic
happiness. Well, I think getting a degree is sort of an experience that's laden with eudaimonic happiness, meaning that sometimes you're going to feel exhilarated. You're going to get a good grade. You're going to, get close to graduation, check off a big milestone. So those are goals. But sometimes it'll be a struggle. When you're studying 5 nights in a row instead of going out with your friends, that's a little bit of suffering there. If you're not sure if you're going to pass your test, that's a little suffering there. And sometimes you're going to be like, what am I doing this for? That's going to be suffering. But at the end, it's going to be worth it.
Isn't that just every experience, though?
You would hope so. And I think that what happens, though, is when people get too inundated with this idea that somehow something's wrong with them if they have negative emotions, negative thoughts, then they'll stop pursuing the things that really mean something to them. And that's where we find people get trapped in when we see somebody who's suffering from depression or anxiety. They think, oh, well, if I do this, my depression will get worse. So I just better not do anything at all.
Right,
and
right,
actually that in itself makes the depression worse.
Right.
So the funny thing about ACT, and I kind of saved this until the end because I don't think people necessarily, when they first hear this, like, then what's the point? ACT's primary goal is not about making you feel better. So it's not about symptom reduction. So if you come to ACT and you say, hi, I would like to feel less depressed, ACT's explicit goal is actually not to help you do that. It's a byproduct because when you start to live a meaningful life, you start to feel less distress. But its core goal is not to make you feel better. And a lot of people will hear that and say, then what's the point? Because I just want to feel better. And this is the point. The point is, when you're living a meaningful life, you don't always feel good all the time.
Yeah, oh, that's so good.
And that goes back to that original idea of why do we do ACT? Well, we're trying to pursue a meaningful life even when we're in pain.
Yeah.
So it's actually not about decreasing the pain. That's less important.
Yeah.
The more important thing is that you still pursue that meaningful life even when you're distressed.
Yeah. How does that relate to committed action?
So values and committed action kind of go together. One of the ways that I like to get people to identify their values is to do a values card sort. So there's obviously thousands of values in the world. It could be honesty, thirst for knowledge, being an upstanding citizen, like all kinds of things. But there's probably, maybe 30, 40, or 50 like kind of common values like knowledge, like integrity, like honesty, love, wisdom, all different kinds of things like that. That again, values are continuous, not goals. That people can sort of sort in terms of a priority order. Like they're all kind of important, but what are my top 5? What are my top 10? So we kind of start from there. And once you identify what your important values are, you then can utilize that to move into committed action. So knowing now that my top values are knowledge, community, and honesty in that order, then how do I build goals for myself in terms of how I want to live my everyday life that nurtures these values, even in small ways? And so some people will tell me, well, I'm depressed right now. So even though I have this huge value of wanting to pursue knowledge, I'm too depressed to go to school. I'm too depressed to learn a new skill. But can't you do something else that would help nurture that? Like even open one periodical and read that. Takes 10 minutes. Can you do that? And that still pursues knowledge, even if it's not the big project you wanted. And that's what is freeing to people, that they realize that you can make committed action in these small steps, as opposed to, okay, now that I've identified knowledge as my value, that means that I have to go get a whole other degree. No, you don't.
Yeah. I get that. I like that. That's straightforward. That's easy. That makes sense. Very textbook.
Yes.
The hardest part for me on that is figuring out your top 10 values.
Yeah.
How do you begin to determine what you are going to place behind commit or in front of committed action? So the values card sort is a variation of an exercise that has been done for decades. And so there's a lot of different versions of it. You can actually Google online to find a version of it. And you basically cut up these cards that are the common values. And again, it's not saying that that's the only values that exist, but these are some of the common ones that people think about. And you take all the cards, they're kind of like little playing cards, and you start to sort of just place them in the priority order that it is for you today. And you have to place all of them. So if you have 30 cards, you're going to order all 30. And so
that's sort of where
one
you
of them
start.
is going to be like, this value is at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, and it still doesn't mean that value is just unimportant to you completely,
Yeah.
but it is like the lowest priority. So then from there, you identify, you look at your top, and you think about, okay, in what ways have I nurtured these top 5 values in the last 24 hours? And that's one way that you can engage with.
In
That's
24 hours?
In the last 24 hours. Have I made some contact with each of them?
Oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one way to do it. You
Yeah.
can do it a lot of different ways, but I like to say, just think back to today, think back to yesterday. You say that knowledge is one of your top values. Did you do anything to help with that? Not really. Okay, well, what can you do in the next 24 hours to try to address that
I need
value?
to do this.
Yeah.
What are your top 5?
Gosh, I need to go look at all of those values to
You
remember.
go look at those 30 again?
Yeah, I want to go see exactly. But I mean, I think knowledge is up there. I think honesty is up there. I think community is up there.
Community.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's probably a bunch of other ones. And
Yeah.
so it can change for you, obviously, from day to day or month to month. And I actually suggest that people do their values card sort again, like a month from now. Because
And you're saying value card
sort.
Sort. Okay.
Yeah, values card sort. So there's a lot of different versions out there, and you can just go and Google one and you can cut out the cards and you can try this exercise for yourself. But I think it's super cool because it's very tangible. It's a different way to engage with an exercise. And it's something that you get to sort of see the product of. So a lot of things that we've talked about in ACT, they feel a little bit more up here, like, okay, this is a new way of thinking. It's going to take me a way to grasp this. Values card sort is tangible. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, you can go home, you can print it, you can lay them out on the floor, do it. I get that.
Exactly. Yeah. And so sort of that self-assessment of what have I done in the last 24 hours to engage with my values, and then what can I do in the next 24 if some of them got forgotten? Some of my top 5 just didn't get touched on. And that does increase your meaningfulness, the way that you live a life that you really want to lead.
Yeah.
And another way to honor the committed action once you have your values is to utilize them in big decisions. Oftentimes people get paralyzed. It's like that decision fatigue, decision paralysis, where they're struggling. Oh my gosh, I have these decisions, I don't know how to make them. And especially when you're distressed already, depressed, anxious, it's going to be even harder for you to make decisions. But if you think about your top 5 values again in your decision making and think about, well, which decision honors more of those top 5 values, you'll never regret it.
That's easy.
It's better than a pros and cons list.
Yes.
It's much better, because pros and cons, again, is like discrete things. It's like a conceptualized self.
Yeah.
It's like, one thing at a time, let's look at a list, as opposed to, which one's going to make my soul feel the best?
That's
Which one
right.
is going to really honor who I believe I am?
That is the way. Forget the pros and cons list.
That's way better than the pros and cons list.
No, do this, the value list.
So much easier.
I know my number 1 value.
What is it?
And I've shared this many times. I do not expect it to change at all in my life, but perhaps it will. Honesty.
Yeah.
And I always say honesty and transparency. I put them together. I value it so much in somebody.
Yeah.
And we could probably go into all the implications of why I lust after that type of quality. But I also practice what I preach.
Yep.
I'm honest to a fault. Dr. Ramani has actually guided me on how to not be so blunt with my delivery and honesty.
Yeah.
But I've never thought about honesty as a way to serve my actions and decisions, really. It's just something that no matter what I did, I know I'll have that, rather than thinking, what could I do that would best serve my desire for honesty and to be honest?
Yeah, that's great. And I think when you know that and when you're assured in that, everything else flows from that. If you know that that's what you want to stand for, then even if you're going through distress, for example, because you've been honest, you still feel good about yourself and your soul, because you're like, but I was honest.
Yep.
And you know what, whatever problem that I'm having now because of my honesty, I can go to sleep at night. I can look at myself in the mirror and I don't have a problem with it, right? And I think that sometimes people get lost. They get distressed, they have depression, they have anxiety, and they forget what they want to stand for. And you think, well, I'll pick that up when I feel better. But it's a catch-22. If you do these things now when you're distressed, you're gonna feel better. That's the byproduct. As opposed to, let me wait until I feel better. Well, then your life is not filled with those meaningful things that give you that oomph, and your depression may drag on a little longer than it otherwise would have.
Yeah.
So it's a funny kind of balance, but I think with sort of tapping into your values, it can really help bring you out of a difficult place. There's no judgment. Like maybe today you don't feel like using self as context. It's too hard for you.
Yeah.
So you do the values card sort instead, because it's more tangible.
That's right.
And you do what it takes in every situation.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do more than that.
Yeah.
And take each situation one at a time, because again, it's just one small part of your entire experience. And it doesn't have to bog you down.
I feel so privileged that I was able to have this conversation with you, because it will shape the way I move forward in life, which in a good way. And I also acknowledge that this is the beginning of my discovery with this.
Yeah.
I'm a MedCircle member as well as the host.
Yes.
I have a paid membership I pay for every month, and I watch the series.
Yeah.
The ones that are helpful for me in my life. And I know when I watch this, hey Kyle, when I watch this series back, I will catch new things from it. And these aha moments will evolve into bigger moments that will serve me. So I feel very lucky and honored that you were able to do this for our viewers and with me, because it is actually life-changing.
Thank you.
Life-changing.
Thank you. I mean, I love ACT too, and
Yeah.
I practice ACT myself.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm always learning also. There's always new things I'm picking up and new ways to think about it. And I think that's the point. The point is that this is a continuous process and not just one end goal, one thing, right? It's a lot of different things and they're always ongoing.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful in that way. I think it's so different from other therapeutic techniques because of the way it describes processes and focuses on that as the core. Yeah.
Well, thank you again for being here. I'm Kyle Kittleson, and make sure you remember, whatever you're going through, you got this. Thanks for watching. Check out the links below for more information on how to access this full series, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch new mental health videos every week. Did you like what you heard in this video? If you want to ask a MedCircle doctor a question directly, you can learn how by visiting the links in the description below.